So I'm going to hand over, first of all, to Catherine Cockerton from Weston College.
Hi, yes, I'm Catherine. I'm the Action Research Lead at Weston. This is one of our outdoor lessons going on. I thought I'd have a bit of an active first slide. We've been working with 4 of our colleges on our research this year. We use the Think Environment as a collaboration process, meeting bi-weekly, and all the teachers were able to speak and share their experiences through a supportive environment. So today co-presenting is Elaine Fletcher from New College, Swindon, Tom Pearce at South Devon College, and Rebecca Morris from Heart of Worcester. So, Elaine.
Sorry, I thought we were, I think I'm a little bit behind you, Catherine, on the presentation. I can see the question slide.
Yes. Oh, yes. So we wanted to investigate the impact of using context in the ratio table in lessons. Apologies. Okay, so at the start, we did a little survey of all of the teachers taking part, just to see how everyone felt about it before we started this project. Some people were quite experienced and had done this thing before, but there were a few of us that hadn't been involved in anything like this before. So you can see a mix of emotions. Some of us were a little bit nervous and apprehensive about what might be required of us, but still excited and curious and looking forward to learning new things and trying new things out with students, whereas others were a little bit more confident about the process. So quite a mix of emotions, but we were all looking forward to taking part and seeing what we could learn and what we could use with our students. So Sue Hoff from Manchester Met presented a CPD last year on contextualisation and mastery, showing the difference between the formal methods and the informal methods of working using the RME approach, realistic maths education, advocating a slower paced learning strategy. Having seen her presentation, we decided to develop our own model around context, the ratio table and problem solving. This also coincided with the CPA, which you've probably heard about today, which I certainly have, the concrete pictorial abstract described by Bruna, which is one of the key aspects to mastery approach. So developing our own model for this, we looked at, first of all, we used the first cycle as a basic idea of context. We asked students what they would like to use on their pancakes, and all the teachers noticed as soon as you asked that question how the atmosphere changed in the room. There were discussions and arguments going on. The questions emerged. People were discussing things between each other, between their vocational areas. They're suddenly getting to know each other, which was a real positive. We then asked the question around what goes into a pancake and introduce a recipe, which may be a good 10 minutes later, but this is time worthwhile. We found it was worth hooking those students in. And at this point, the teachers would introduce the ratio table and ask the learners to find different amounts of pancakes. Most teachers at this point had to scaffold by providing a template, as it was such a new concept to the learners. Teachers found that learners were able to self-differentiate them. They were able to go up in the 8 times table, or some were able to double or halve, or go up sort of timesing 10, timesing by another 10, but not many were able to divide by 3, divide by 8 to get to that 1. And also at this point, it was easy to identify the misconceptions that learners and learner weaknesses around proportional reasoning. So we then pull together students' answers and then ask for one question around pancakes. How many eggs would you need for 100 pancakes? And because of the layout, they were able to identify that quite quickly. Rebecca.
So Catherine's just used an example of our pancake lesson to explain how you could use the ratio table in terms of proportion. What we would love is to hear from you. what other maths concepts do you think we could use the ratio table with? What sort of areas do you think you could use it with? So you put those answers in the chat and we'll have a look through. We've got a list as well, which we'll show you in a second. So percentages is a perfect example. Yeah. We did a big lesson on exchange rates, actually, is like my first trial of the ratio tables, which was really good fun. Amazing, there's tons of stuff there, Catherine, so perfect. So this is another list that we put together just of all the different areas. So obviously there's quite a few that you mentioned already in the chat. This is to show you just how many things the ratio table links in with. So it's why we were so excited about it, why we're still so excited about it, because we can realise we can use it in so many different parts of our teaching.
Lovely, thank you. Teachers were able to develop their own lessons in context. We shared these lessons and our findings of these lessons on the Padlet. One of the most successful lessons we found was the petrol lesson that Tom created. But as we were just getting used to this sort of process of doing these lessons, the lockdown occurred and some of the teachers were struggling to get through their scheme of learning. And because there were sort of 4 different colleges, everybody was going at a different pace. And also it was really difficult to see the workings and to sort of help scaffold their workings if they were getting those wrong. So we decided to, in one of our meetings, we decided to use the Gibbs reflective cycle to adapt and change the model, moving towards completing the ratio tables as starting activities.
And lucky for us, we already were using a website called MathSpot, a lot of us. And on MathSpot, there's actually a starter activity based around using the ratio table, which was ideal. So this is an example of one of the ones that would come up, and this is looking at a recipe again. So it would come up on the screen for the students with serves 4, then serves 8, serves 2, etc., etc. If we had more high ability groups, we'd cover that bit up, but in this case here, we've got it open up. So you can see, for example, going from serves 4 to serves 8, you can just double the amount there. So you're working your way up from 4 to 8. Then to get to 12, you can add your 4 and your 8 amounts together. So rather than having to times by 3 straight away to go from 4 to 12, you're doing times in by 2 and adding, which students tend to find a little bit easier. Then to go on to 2, obviously it's dividing the 4 by 2 there to get your 2. And you can do exactly the same thing to get onto serves 1 as well. So you can divide by 2 again. And you can do the addition to get to your 3. And then moving on more to your 10s and your 20s, you just times in your 2 and your 1s amount by 10. So if we, for example, the question was something like, can you find how much you need for 50 people? Then in our lower ability groups, we give them this table to fill in first and ask them to use those amounts to work out how much you need for 50. If they're a higher ability, then we're more likely to leave them without the top headings and give them a chance to work their own way up to that 50.
Okay, so at the end of the project, we kind of got our thoughts together again and how we felt about it. And I think, we all felt really inspired, although it had been a difficult year with lockdowns and not being in a classroom with our students for a lot of the time. We still kind of felt really motivated by it. And, one of the things I think that struck us most was just the sheer number of topics that this could be adapted for and that it could be used for to help the students. So we're all really excited to take this further and to carry on and look at it in more detail and see what other topics we can use it and how effective it is for all of those topics.
Right, so yeah, I hope you've got a sense of how enthused we were as teachers by the ratio table and the sort of the effect it had on our students. We then gave our students a questionnaire and got some feedback from them, and this is just some of the results from that. So the first question we asked them was did the real life examples, they're talking about pancakes, talking about how much it cost you for your car at the beginning of the lesson, help them understand the maths? And you can see here that 95% of the students we did the research with give it a score of 3 or above. So they said that the introduction of the maths in context, talking about favourite pancake toppings, this gentle start to the lessons, helped them understand later on. They could see the relevance of it and what the maths was leading them towards. And then the second question we asked them was about the ratio table. Did using the ratio table to work through the problems help them understand the maths? And again, 93% scored 3 or above. Because for learners who've got a less intuitive sense of proportion, they can use the ratio table to see how they're constructing their answers in a way that with the standard sort of unitary method, they can't grasp the full connections. So I think that was one of the big impacts that it had. And then this is, I think, the most impactful graph. This is one that we filled in. So the left-hand side, we gave a 1 out of 10 score for how much we used the ratio tables in our lessons before this research project. And after the research project, as teachers, we've said 9.5 out of 10, we're going to use the ratio table with our learners in lessons. And I think one of the big things next year is we'll be able to introduce it at a much earlier stage. And the earlier we introduce this, the more opportunities we'll have to link to different concepts throughout the year. You've seen the big list of concepts it links to. And then this is the essence. There's a few little student quotes. This is things that our students have said about the ratio table in the little open text box at the end of their feedback sheet. So we've got, who would have thought I would ever understand the ratios? I use the table method all the time. It really helps me understand what's going on. and the I actually get it now is sort of front and center, because that was a real theme of the feedback, is that they don't just have procedural knowledge. They're not just repeating something, but they know what they're doing, they know why they're doing it, and they know what they're getting out of it. So that was the real impact it had on our students, which was brilliant.
Thank you. So in conclusion, the learners were able to articulate their own knowledge, enabling a hook into the mathematical concept in a fairly relaxed atmosphere. And then the table gave a logical structure, and this is came up in the Ofsted report 2021, that it was a critical requisite that there was a logical structure. But although the ratio table was not always observed in the workings of the learners, we were able to connect with, they were more able to connect with the abstract, having used the sequence of the model, which connects the Bruner's model, concrete, pictorial, abstract. And we're certainly all going to embed it. We all agreed that we'd embed it in our schemes of learning from the start of next year. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed our presentation.